Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Steven Carr Show. Today, we're going to be talking about the Respect for Marriage Act. And we're going to be talking about some highlights that's going on, hit some news articles, hit some action items. I'm going to be talking about social emotional learning, the research I did, um, and what some people have said about it, um, and what I was going to do and what I was going to do last at the last school board meeting and speak about. And um, I was actually going to we're going to actually talk about Christians waking the church waking up and Christians waking up, um, and what we can do to save our republic and what is going on in the world, and a couple of other things. So we're going to hit first um, with the Respect for Marriage Act, and I'm going to get right into that here in a second. Let me type it in, and I'll tell you. Um, Respect for Marriage Act. I'll read it right from the bill, right from the bill to you here. Shown here, introduced in the Senate, Respect for Marriage Act. This bill provides statutory authority for same-sex and interracial marriages. Specifically, the bill repeals and replaces provisions that define for purpose of federal law marriage as between man and woman and spouse as person of the opposite sex with provisions that recognize any marriage that is valid under the state law. The Supreme Court held that the current provisions were unconstitutional. The bill also repeals and replaces provisions that do not require states to recognize same-sex marriages from other states with provisions that prohibit denial of full faith and credit or any right to reclaim or relating to out-of-state marriages on the basis of sex, gender, race, ethnicity, or national origin. The Supreme Court held that the state laws bearing same-sex marriages were unconstitutional in Eberfella and Hodges in 2015. The court held that state laws bearing interracial marriages were unconstitutional in Loving versus Virginia. The bill allows the Department of Justice to bring a civil action and establishes a private right of action for violations. So there you have what that bill says. But if you do not comply, churches do not comply to churches or religious organizations do not comply to the standards of non-traditional marriage as the institution marriage that has been long held, biblically um, and traditionally sound throughout the country, as it was woman and man, that churches will be forced to shut down and tax exemption will be taken away, along with adoption, religious and faith-based organizations and faith-based adoption agencies will be forced to shut down and comply to the standards, um, to their standards. Folks, they're coming after folks. If you're a Christian and you're conservative and you believe in these values, they're coming after you. They're coming after me. They're coming after church. They are anti-religious. They're anti-Christophobic. They're Christophobic. They are they are godless. The Democrats are godless and don't believe in it. When was the last time? Does anybody know the last time that high schools or schools actually had a moment of silence or even had the Pledge of Allegiance and wasn't forced to leave God out of the flag? Um, when was the last time that schools were able to teach conservative values and um, morality and truth and actual knowledge. Um, actual knowledge in the north. I think it was the Northwestern Ordinance. I think it was Northwestern Ordinance. Northwestern Ordinance. It says that schools were to teach science, knowledge, morality, and religion back in back in the back in those times in the 18 and 1700s. We have gotten away from 18th and 1700s, my friends, and we have gotten away from history. Now we are teaching CRT in schools. We are teaching Common Core in schools. We are teaching diversity, inclusion in schools. We're having Gay Street Alliance clubs. We're having diversity clubs. Not that I'm homophobic, not that I am racist, but we don't need to divide amongst race. We don't need to divide and teach hate between each other. We don't need to divide and conquer. I mean, yes, there are homosexuals out there. Yes, there are gay and lesbian people in schools. But Jesus tells us to love the sinner and hate the sin. There is in the Bible it says there is no Greek, no Jew, no slave under Christ. We are all one. The Constitution says that we are created equal, um, and have unalienable rights, and those rights belong to God as long as God is in the picture, as long as we restore God back to our country, as long as we have those rights and God exists and I can, and He does that the government cannot take away our rights. Government cannot take away our rights, and the government is not the right. If they did take away the rights, it becomes socialism. It becomes communism, and the state owns you, and the state owns you, the government owns you, and that is communism, that is socialism, my friends. But the church needs to wake up, like I said, folks. Be the Bonhoeffers. Be a pastors need to become Bonhoeffers. Christians need to become the Dietrich Bonhoeffers of this era. The pastors need to become Black Robe Regiment pastors and fight. Is your church? Is your pastors talking about the Respect for Marriage Act? Are they are they telling you what's going on? Are they speaking on moral issues of this century? Are they speaking on abortion? Are they speaking on LGBTQ issues and moral issues of the Bible? It says many times in the Bible about the abomination of men sleeping with men and women sleeping with women. Paul in First Romans says that the reason why these things happen is because God gave them over to their perverse minds because they decided to worship the created instead of the creator, and He gave them over to their perverse minds because He didn't want nothing because He could not save them no longer, and so He gave them up in that decision. It's not because you were born this way; it's because you decided to worship the created created idols and created things that the creator had made instead of worshiping the God of the universe, instead of worshiping Jesus Christ, instead of worshiping God Almighty, instead of worshiping the Alpha and the Omega, the King of Kings. This is what happens, folks. And and it's wrong. It defiles the institution, the one of the oldest institutions of marriage, woman and man. He did not make Adam and Steve. He made Adam and Eve, and it goes on and speaks about it in Romans 5:12. It speaks about it in the beginning of Genesis, um, and it goes. And so, whenever a topic is repeated in the Bible, Christians and people should heed that warning. When it speaks about hell, my friends, many times when it speaks about sin, many times people should heed the warning that whenever something's repeated by Jesus or God and speaks about it many times, that is a warning to people. Um, just like Babylon is mentioned many times throughout the Bible. It's one of the many things that is spoken about, and it's a warning, meaning that there will be a new Babylon, and Babylon is being created right in front of us if you don't know it or not. I mean, right? I mean, fire departments are having drag shows. Um, Schools are having transgender cross dressing story time. Um, the left is taking away religion. The left is taking away God out of things, and we need to restore our republic back to God. We need to get back to the Judeo-Christian values, and the only way to instill these things is by the Constitution for one, and the Bible for another. And we need to apply the Bible to our lives, to morality, and the Constitution to our lives. Instill these things in your kids, instill these things in yourself, and in your neighbors, and in your friends, and um in the community. Um, so that's another thing. So as I was saying, um, that Christians need to wake up, or their churches will be taken down. I'm not talking about me as a church. I'm talking about the church building, and a lot of people need that communal connectivity with the building to the worship. Others know that the church is yourselves, is the body of Christ. But um, now's the time. It's no longer enough to stay passive as a Christian, as a church. We need to be active and involved in our government. We need to be able to stand our ground. We need to be able to speak out on moral issues of this world. So and I will continue this. So now I'm going to get into what's called social emotional learning, which is a candy coded word name for CRT, or which took place with CRT. Social emotional learning is being instilled in schools everywhere. If it's not CRT, it's social emotional learning. Um, and really, it's administered questions and tests being administered to the students with personal and psychological probing and questions. Some of these questions you need to have teachers need to have parental consent or HIPAA or a confidentiality agreement, because to have these things ministered. But the problem with these things is African American students um, are marginalized by this, because research has shown that African American students of color strive better and harder because of their background, because of their home life. Rather home life. Imagine, and making things easier for them will probably make things harder for them. They already strive to harder because of who they are as a person and what they've been through. But they marginalize it, and this is evidence based on things too, that social emotional learning hardly works. And so but I'm going to read off some things to you. It says, with SEL, students would be taught what the government and Aspen thinks as proper skills, attitudes, character traits, and values to succeed in school, careers, and life. Holland sums up the case against SEL, perfectly stating that the whole child movement depends on the raw exercise of totalitarian power to erase parental rights. To the thought that parents must gain the clout to select schools that respect family values and help children become well-rounded, independent thinking individuals. Therefore, the question remains: would you feel comfortable with Donald Trump telling your kids how to properly live their lives? What about Barack Obama? The system is implemented would take more power away from the educators, families, and students, thus bringing in insidious opportunity to indoctrinate your kids into believing views, certain beliefs, standards, or systems that go against your role as a parent and beliefs as an individual. Now, Holland is a is a person of I think it was Diversity Education University, and he speaks on that. Um, so that's just one thing. So let me go through here real quick. I'm not going to go through all these pages for once, but let's see here if I can find it real quick. Oh, there's something. Let's see here. Like all families, Black caregivers send their children to school not only to learn but to be cared for by educators. In far too many cases, neither is taking place, as revealed by increasing Black-white achievement gaps over referrals to high incidence areas of special education and excessive suspensions, under referrals, gifted education and advanced courses, and excessive policing of Black bodies from head to toe as early as preschool. All of these all of these school-based injustices have a common denominator, mainly white educators who harbor negative, explicit negative expectations of Black students. The litany of journal articles, data-based reports, and personal stories and social media slam me in the face and pain of my heart almost daily. The altercation and dehumanizing of Black children from preschool through high school and on college is undeniable and sickening. This comes from Donna Ford, who was a um, person who works with people of color and ethnicity. Um, the field of social emotional learning has a long history and is discussed in a myriad of ways, such as a therapy and counseling and advising to help students cope with resist bullying and feelings of alienation and isolation and manage desires of popular and not underachieve. Um, Underlying much of the conjecture and studies is the belief that those who have positive self-esteem and healthy, if I can find the other one, healthy self-concept fare better in schools and life, and socially, behaviorally, academically, and society career than those who don't. So as you can see, it marginalizes people of color, and I've said that it marginalizes African Americans with white Caucasians. And suppose you administrated these tests, and a whole group of white people got a high score. Why? And a whole group of Black people got high scored. But because of that person who's given it might have racial bias or whatever, or the test becomes racial biased, they marginalize the Black group rather than and um, becomes racist and biased. Why the whites actually um, have white Caucasians have a better testing, but it shouldn't be that way. It should be equal students. We went from Common Core, we went from No Student Left Behind. Now we're coming on to CRT and covering it with social emotional learning, and um, it's getting out of control. We need to get back to schools teaching rather than being the parents and being counseling. I mean, teachers don't certainly have a degree in counseling. They don't have the education to, and they should not have the education. And they should not be doing these counseling questions or um, putting these tests out. Stick to geography, stick to science, stick to history, the true history, the real history. Um, Stick to math, um, the basics, even trades, but get away from this um, CRT and social emotional learning. Um, Also, to go on to another subject, I use this. If you're all people, everyone should be doing this. It's called citizen journalism, and I've been doing this. I've been using this platform, these videos, and Facebook and Twitter and True Social as a way of activating people and informing people and doing journalism. I also use yournews.com to write articles and post articles and report stuff on. My favorite guy who did citizen journalism, this guy right here, Andrew Breitbart. He's got a book out. If you don't have it, you should read it. It will inspire you to become a citizen journalist and report things down and use yournews.com. All precinct committeemen should be using yournews.com to report in these things and getting publicity out and getting the precinctstrategy.com site out and what we're doing. I challenge you to get this book as well as the Constitution and the Citizen Rule book. But guys, stay informed, stay educated, and be active in your community, use your agency. Let's get things done and save our republic.